Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys. Hello everyone and welcome to video number 24 in Make a Game, a cool series on making a video game in Unity. So this video is called Finishing Up, and it's not going to be the very last video in the series because I want to do a couple of videos at least on building your game and exporting to different platforms. But I also wanted to do this video that just took care of some loose ends and just polished the result a little bit. So the stuff that we are going to be doing today is, first off, we are going to just adjust the controls because I think that they are a bit annoying at the moment. Then we're going to create an enemy death sound, and that's going to be pretty much a power-up sound of some sorts. Then we are just going to quickly do some organization. And finally, we're going to add an icon to our game. And the software that I'm going to be using for this is Photoshop, because that's what I'm most familiar with. But pretty much you can use any kind of 2D editing software like GIMP, which is free. Or you could even go ahead and download UPA Toolkit from the Unity Asset Store. It's an asset by me. Which allows you to create pixel art really easily inside of Unity. So if you wanted to make a cool pixel art logo, you could use that. Cool. So, but the things I'm going to be explaining are pretty general, and I will also provide you with the finished icon if you don't want to make one yourself. Awesome. So as always, if you have any questions throughout the video, go to forum.brackeys.com. And now that we've said all that, let's just get started with today's video. Don't mind me using the Pro skin, everything is still going to apply to you. Okay, so first thing on the list here is controls. So if I just go ahead and play the game right now and just turn off my monitors here so the music doesn't feed into my microphone. You can see that we have a working menu with a music slider and all that. If we hit play game, we can play through the game, and I've just made some very few adjustments. I've simply pulled apart the platforms a bit so the character doesn't get stuck between them. And also, you can see here, if we just complete this level, I've made a second one, and that's simply using all of the same assets. Just one enemy, we have some coins placed in different places, and all I've done with this platform here is simply rotated it a bit around the z-axis, that must be. And whoops, it looks like I didn't complete it there, but if you can see I've placed a, if we go into level 2 here, a checkpoint right there, and if you get down there, it simply takes you to the end level scene, which of course displays our score. Cool. So that's basically all there is to the game right now, and you can of course expand on this, but I think that's going to be the finished state that I'm going to export my build in, or my game in. So let's start out by just adjusting these controls. So if we go under the ball and go under the ball control script, I first off want to kind of make the controls more snappy. And a pretty easy way to do this is bump up the angular drag. Angular drag is basically the resistance on your rotational movement. So if we bump this up all the way to 10 and then increase our rotation speed to be 10 folds, which is 2000, and then bump up the mass to 2, we're going to get a lot of resistance and we're going to need a lot of power in order to rotate the rigid body. But once we have that power, it's going to feel a lot more snappy. We're going to accelerate more quickly, and we're going to be able to change direction more quickly. So you can see here what that does, and it actually makes it a lot more fun to play because now you actually have a chance in controlling whether or not you hit an enemy. Cool. So that was the first thing. Next up is the enemy death sound. So if you haven't already, you can download the Make a Game assets from Brackeys.com. And I'm just quickly going to show you how to do that. So of course, Brackeys.com, simply go there, go under Projects, select Make a Game, and simply download the scripts and assets right there. Cool. And once those are downloaded, it's simply a zip file, so you should be able to open it without an extractor. Or if you have issues, you can use WinRAR. Then we go under audio, and I've made this, I've found this power-up file from freesound.org, and I've made sure that the license is Creative Commons 0, so you can use it in any way you wish, also for commercial projects. So if I just play this quickly. Wait a second, let me just turn on my monitors here. There we go. So it's kind of this rewarding sound that the player should hear when he kills an enemy. So let's load that into our game. So simply drag it and hover over Unity and simply drop it under the audio folder. And it should rest in here so we can find the power-up sound there. And what we basically want to do here is find our enemy object, the enemy center here. And well, this gets deleted the second that we killed the enemy, if I am correct here. So let's check that out. Look in the hierarchy over here. Actually, it doesn't, so that's perfect. Or remember, we did the death animation and all that. So all we need to do is basically just attach a audio source here and drag in the, oops, what's the null reference? Let's double click that to open it up in what should be Mono Develop. I see that I've still configured this with Visual Studio, so I'm just going to change this in the edit project, preferences, external tools. I'll quickly just switch that to Mono Develop. Cool, so let's try and open that in Mono Develop and see what this error is all about. Cool. So it's trying to restart our level, but apparently it cannot find the game master, is what it looks like. So we'll simply say that if game master is not equal to null, then we want to restart our level. And this is a very handy thing that a lot of people don't know. If you hold down Alt and press up and down, you can move lines like that. So that's super useful. So let's try that again. I'm just gonna jump on him. There we go. So now we don't have any issues. Okay, so basically what we want to do is re-enable this audio source, and we can drag in the power-up clip. And the audio is just going to be is not going to be anything in particular. We don't need any control over this. And the volume, we're going to have to see about that. So basically, let's uncheck play on awake, and let's find a way to trigger this sound. So let's double click on the enemy and add some code onto this. So let's start by making a reference. So death particles. We're also going to make a var death sound of type audio source. Yeah, that's perfect. And then under the die method, we want to instantiate death particles, and we want to say death sound dot play. And this takes in a parameter if you want, but that's a delay in samples, so that's not something we're going to be needing. Cool. And now we can simply drag this audio source in there, and everything should be working. You want to make sure to set the spatial blend to 2D if you want it to play as normal. But if you want that 3D sound, sense of direction, then you can of course use the slider. I want this to be entirely 2D. So let's try that. That's perfect. I didn't want this huge sound, just a small one to indicate that we've done something great. Okay, so let's now just hit apply on that, and all those settings should save. And we can also hit apply on our ball if we didn't do that before, which I don't think we did. So we are speeding through these points today. The next up is organization, because I want this project to look a bit more needy. So let's take our current score, destructible, down hit, endpoint, enemy final score, and kill on hit scripts and drag them under the scripts folder. Let's also make a scenes folder. So let's create a folder called scenes and drag in our levels and our main menu. And next up we have these two materials, so let's drag them under the materials folder. Great, so now everything is just as it should be. One thing I like to do is I like to have the opening scene, which would be our main menu, in the root assets folder. This way people know what to click if they download the project and want to start from the very beginning. Next up we go under File, Build Settings, and make sure that all of your scenes are in the build settings. That's very important. Cool. So the final thing that we need to do is just creating an icon. So let's do this. We could use several assets from the game in creating this icon. For example, we could use this guy, but since this guy is modeled after a Mario character, that might be a bit too much. So we could use the ball here, but I really like the look of our coin right now. So let's actually take a snapshot of that. So let's just temporarily disable everything but that coin that is in the frame. So let's disable the ball. Let's disable the platform too. There we go. Now we can go in here and we can turn off the skybox using this button here. We want the lighting to be on because I like the lighting effect that comes from the sun being heightened a bit. And then we can turn off all of these gizmos that are also in the way. We could do 3D icons and just size them all the way down, which I think is what we're going to do. We can also turn off the grid, and now we actually have a clean background to use. So let's just zoom in on this. Might as well get a pretty HD picture. You can also full screen this by using Shift Space, which I'm going to do. And you will notice that it is clear that this is a fairly low poly object, but I think that will be fine for our case. So now let's go under our snipping tool. Some kind of Windows uses the snipping tool for screenshots. On Mac, this would be Command-Shift-4 in order to take a screenshot where you can select part of the screen as the image you want to take. Whoops! Whoa, I did something crazy there. So let's zoom back in on the coin. And we need to find a good angle. I think we want it kind of from the side here. So something like that looks fairly decent. And whoops. Jesus Christ, why does it keep doing that? So let's try and zoom in on the coin here. Let's do this one last time. I think I hit some kind of mouse button there. Okay, so let's take the snipping tool. Again, Command-Shift-4 on the Mac. Let's hit New. And let's just drag around this. Fine. Now let's save this as coin. You can just save it on the desktop so far. And let's open up Photoshop. And just clean up my desktop here a bit. Cool. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to create a new image. And I like to make this much larger than it needs to be. Let's do 1920 by 1920, or actually 1080 by 1080. It's going to be fine. And we're going to call this the Make a Game logo or icon. And let's just hit OK. It's going to create this image. Now let's double click on the background, rename this to BG, and let's drag in our coin. Cool, let's scale up this coin. And let's now remove this ugly looking background. So we can just use the magic wand to do this. Let's just see how that looks. First, click to make a selection. Then press Ctrl-Shift-I to invert that selection. And then click on the mask down here, the layer mask, and it will mask away all that. So that actually looks fairly good. And we could do some more stuff with this. I think that we should maybe do some kind of background for this. So let's go ahead and create a rounded rectangle tool. Let's select a color for this. Maybe some kind of a deep blue could be fun here. Let's round the corners a bit more than 10 pixels. Let's try 40 pixels. And let's try and drag this by pressing in the center, then holding Shift and Alt. Something like this. Then let's center this, both this and the coin, by pressing Control and then clicking on the BG here. That will select our entire screen. We could also just use the rectangular marker tool here and just mark everything off. And then we want to select this rounded rectangle, go under Layer, Align Layers to Selection, Vertical Centers, and Layer, Align Layers to Selection, Horizontal Centers. And we'll do the same thing with our coin. So let's just drag this under our coin. Image, or Layer, Align Layers to Selection, Vertical, Layer, Align Layers to Selection, Horizontal, just to make sure that it's in the center. Now we can scale this up to fit our entire screen. Cool. And let's see, what do we want to do with this? You can see here that the mask hasn't been perfect. So let's just make sure to delete, simply select the mask over here, then hit M, select all of this and just delete that. Just to make sure that we don't have any ugly edges once we export this. Maybe it would have been a good idea to like increase the radius on this to something more. But I think for now we're just gonna stick with the 40 here. I'm doing this fairly quickly just to demonstrate how you would go about doing this. So we can play around with some different colors here. I kind of like this light blue, which is also kind of a theme color for the Make a Game series. So let's just stick with that. And we can maybe do some kind of cool looking edge on this. So let's duplicate the rounded rectangle and just drag it in a bit. And let's make this darker. And still give it a bit of blue. I'll show you something cool you can do with this just in a moment. And then we can double click this and select Inner Shadow and bump up the size on this. And that really adds some depth to the picture. And now we can just change the color of our edge here because I want it to be kind of more bright. That is pretty fine. I want the edge to be larger because the icon is going to be fairly small. And we can also give the coin here a drop shadow. So drop shadow on that, size it up a bit. That looks fairly nice. We could also make it glow if we wanted to, but I think we are just gonna not. We could also add a bevel to the outside here, but I think that's gonna be a bit too much. However, it would be pretty nice to add some kind of gradient to that. So let's go under gradient overlay and let's change this to luminosity. And let's change this to overlay instead. And let's bump down the opacity quite a bit on that. So something like this looks like a pretty cool icon. It's very simple and easy to just take an element from your game, which you think is pretty central, and then just kind of make a background for it, and whoops, you have an icon. So I think we're just gonna stick with this. It's not perfect, but I think it will be pretty good for now. So let's go on the file, save as. Let's locate our project folder. Actually, I'm just gonna save this into our asset pack. So let's go under Mac assets here. Let's go under textures, I guess. I really want this to be named images, maybe. Actually, let's just save this in the root folder. So make a game icon, and this is gonna be the PSD version. Save. And also we'll make a JPEG version for those of you who have not, who don't have Photoshop installed. And now we can simply open up Unity. We can go and simply drag these into the root folder of Unity. So I'm simply gonna, discard my changes to the scene, go on the main menu and hit Don't Save, because we don't want to save those changes, and we can go back in and enable all of the gizmos here and show the grid again. And whoops, we're back. And let's just go under the Mac assets. Let's go and drag in, I'm just gonna drag in the PSD in a Unity, and you can see it imports the icon nicely. We're then going to change this from texture to sprite. And you can basically leave all of these. We want the filter mode to be bilinear. You could do trilinear. And we want it to be true color and a maximum of 2048, which is perfect. Hit apply on that. And now we can go and simply insert this into our build settings. So if you go under build settings, select the platform you want, go under player settings. You can see that we can change this to this company name is Brackeys, the product name is Make a Game, and you can simply drag in the default icon and you can see it scale here. So once you build this, and I'm just going to do a quick test build, hope that this works out. I'm going to go into depth, way more depth with the build settings in some of the next videos, but now let's just build this into the desktop. Find the Dropbox here, Mac, make a game, and let's create a separate folder here called builds, and let's call this test build. It's gonna save that, and it's gonna start building. Okay, so it's done building, and you can see that Windows sometimes has this weird bug where it shows the icon at really low resolution. But I find that sometimes if you just move it from one folder to another, it refreshes, and other times you have to restart. And that's, I don't know, it's some weirdness. But we're gonna look into making it into an installable and all that in another video. But just for now, if we hold down Control and zoom in on this, we can see that it's actually pretty high resolution and that it looks really nicely. And if we open that, it's of course going to start up the game. Cool, so that was basically all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to finally building our game properly in the next video. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.